Hi, welcome to MTG Friends. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Zach.
and this is day number 7 of
7 of 9, yeah.
7 of 9. I'm gonna have to put a picture of 7 of 9 up now.
Please do.
Of Zendikar Rising. We're excited. We're kind of getting to the tail end of this. I believe there's a couple more days.
Yeah, the Commander spoilers are Wednesday, so tomorrow should be the last day of the main set.
Yep, and Zach has said he will do at least one episode for one of those commanders. Which commander?
I'm planning to do a deck tech for Anawan, the Ruin Thief.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you who don't know, was leaked by GameStop several days early, so I've had a few days to check that one out.
Thank you, GameStop. All right,
yeah,
so
they accidentally posted the full product images.
oh, goofballs! So we're gonna start in. We have a mid-size highlight cards today, and we're gonna start with Forsaken Monument. It is a 5-drop legendary artifact. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2 whenever you tap a permanent for one colorless. Add an additional colorless whenever you cast a colorless spell. You gain 2 life. Now, Zach, you mentioned something before we recorded, which was something about Monolith?
This card is yet another card that goes infinite with Basalt Monolith.
Infinite
which is
Basalt.
An absolute classic card, back from the very early days of Magic.
Yes.
Tap to add 3 colorless. Costs just 3 to play, Costs 3 to play, taps for 3. Doesn't untap, but you can spend 3 to untap it. Well, hey, with Forsaken Monument out, suddenly it taps for 4.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yep. So we got that
that's
going.
That's a way to do things. Absolutely.
Yep. And beside this is just a cool card, and I think it's playable for sure in Commander.
Genuinely, though, this is like the 3rd set in a row where we've gotten a card that allows Basalt Monolith to go infinite. So I hope this is the trend that continues, because it's actually funny at this point.
It is humorous. So Skyclave Relic for 3 with Kicker 3. Go ahead.
One quick thing I wanted to mention, too. This Forsaken Monument, I'm glad it's at Mythic, because it's going to be a little weird in Limited if you grab one, because I believe there's only been like 2 or 3 completely colorless creatures. Yeah, 2 colorless creatures spoiled so far. And we're real close to the end here, so I don't know how huge this is going to be in Limited, but
right.
I think Commander's going to love this.
Yeah, I think this is a Commander card. I think that's where it's going to find its home.
That art is gorgeous, too.
Yes, it is. Skyclave Relic for 3 artifact, Kicker 3 indestructible. When Skyclave Relic enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 tap tokens that are copies of Skyclave Relic. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Now, I just think this is great. For 6, you get to have 3 of these. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. It's really interesting to compare to other mana rocks. I think this isn't quite there. I think it's close. At its base, this is a Darksteel ingot.
Yes.
3 mana, indestructible, tap to add any color. That's fine. Another Darksteel ingot, nobody's going to be super upset about that. But in Commander, the rate you really want your mana rocks to be at is at 2 mana. So this is one of those cards that just at its very base level isn't something that's super appealing to Commander. But then that kicker kind of adds an interesting twist.
Yes.
Getting 3 mana rocks for 6, each of which adds 1 mana of any color, not of the same color, is definitely interesting. It becomes a lot more compared to Gilded Lotus at that point, which is for 5 mana, tap to add 3 mana of any one color, with that flexibility of being indestructible. Where I think this falls off just enough for me to not quite love it is that the tokens come in tapped.
Oh, yeah.
So you're paying 6 and you get 1 mana off of it, so this effectively costs 5. Whereas Gilded Lotus comes in for 5 and taps for 3, meaning you paid approximately 2 for it. So I think the tapped downside on 2 of those is definitely hurting this a little more than it needed to.
Gotcha.
I would have loved this if they entered untapped, and I think if them entering tapped, I'm a little less hyped about this than I'd like to be.
All right, fair enough.
Still a good card, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't get me wrong. Casual Commander is going to love this.
Well, let's talk about a card that both of us just went, what? And that is Lithiform Engine for 4. Legendary artifact with some very cool stats. For 2 tap, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. 3 tap, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. And this last one is what you and I both got bug-eyed about, which was 4 tap, copy target permanent spell you control.
This is so weird.
Yes,
In
it
the
is.
best possible way.
Oh, yes, it is.
I mean, at its rate, it's a 4-drop, which is fine. 2 to copy and activated or triggered is great. Can't complain about that.
Mm-mm.
3 to copy an instant or sorcery, that's great. I really can't complain about that. But 4 to copy a permanent spell.
Right, and
that
this
means you have to have the spell on the stack.
Yep. So
super crazy.
Yep, it can be countered. The spell can be countered.
Yeah.
And you can do the
Force a
lithiform
resolution
engine and force it
Yeah.
to happen still with a copy. I mean, that's cool stuff.
The thing that's craziest about this too is like the copy target permanent spell, and it makes that token, you know?
Uh-huh.
It makes a token of your permanent, which has never happened before in terms of on the stack magic.
Yeah.
I think the activated ability is a little expensive to make this like crazy until late game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to play your big beefy creature, have it countered, or even just play your big beefy creature, and then you have to pay an additional 4. But like, there are times where you have that mana, and you are more than happy to get another copy of your big bomb.
Absolutely.
I think that's crazy unique.
Yeah, very cool. I'm excited to see where this finds a home. I'm sure it'll have a home in Commander. I don't know if we'll see it in some Legacy formats, but it'll be interesting to see.
I worry it's a little too expensive for Legacy. I don't know if they want to pay that 4 mana just to get it out in the first place.
Uh-huh.
But it's also a colorless artifact, so I mean...
Yeah.
In the right shell, this is definitely something people wouldn't hate.
Yeah, very cool. So next up is a Kiri Fearless Voyager for 3, 1 red, white. Legendary creature, Core Warrior. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, draw a card. Ooh, drawing a card in red.
And white.
And white. You may unattach an equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature and it gains indestructible until end of turn. And this is a 3/3 drop. I at first glance, I wasn't super excited about this because I was thinking, okay, in Standard and, in Pioneer and everything. But then you pointed out Commander play.
Absolutely. This card is everything that Boros has been wanting in Commander for a while. It's cheap, 3-drop. Its activated ability is cheap, just a single white. It does that fake regeneration that they've been using as a template since around Ixalan.
Yeah.
Always great to see it. And all it costs is just an unattach. I mean, if you're playing like, Lightning Greaves, so on, like that's a really cheap cost to pay. You pay a single white to make your dude indestructible. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't require the creature to be untapped to gain that indestructible either. It's just part of the effect would be tapping it even if it's still tapped.
Right.
But most importantly, that first ability, the triggered ability, scales with the number of players you've got. If you've got 3 equipped creatures and you have 1 attack each different player, that's 3 cards you just drew in Boros.
Right.
A color that struggled in Commander so much because of their lack of card draw.
Well, and leaving white open at any portion of the opponent's turn just to make sure that you don't lose a creature, that's really interesting. I like that.
I also like the political aspect of that because, you can unattach that 1 equipment and make your creature indestructible only for your next opponent on their next turn in Commander to also target that same creature.
Yeah.
It's really about like timing and what you can weather and what you can't.
Yeah.
And, how badly you need to protect that creature.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Very interesting.
I love the way that it uses unattaching an equipment as part of that effect as well. It's a really flavorful way to do things.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very. All right, so the next one is Inscription of Insight. This is the 3rd one we've seen out of this set of these inscriptions. This is the blue version. I believe, not to speak for you, but we both were like, all right.
Yeah. I was super let down by this one, not because of its effects are specifically like bad. I think paying 4 mana to bounce 2 creatures is fine. Paying 4 mana to scry 2 and draw 2, that's like a better divination, And paying 4 mana to make an XX blue illusion where X is the number of cards in your hand can definitely be impactful. My biggest complaint about this is that it's a sorcery.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay 8 mana on my turn to do these 3 things. I want to pay it on your turn once I'm sure you have nothing to do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And honestly, I don't even want to pay 4 for that on my turn. That's a lot of mana to think about, even with 2-card bounces. Like, the tempo here is off.
Yeah,
in a way.
For the versatility of having those 3 different choices, 4 is too much. Yeah.
And they're good choices, but they don't need to be at sorcery speed. I mean, granted, I'm sure they don't want white ambushing you with a huge XX.
Yeah.
But,
the coolest thing about this card, I think, is the artwork.
The art's great.
Yeah. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a resounding meh.
Yeah, Zendikar meh. We both pass on that one. Maddening Cacophony for a true drop. I was very excited to read this, especially because I have a special place in my heart for mill decks. So,
I do too.
Yes. Oh, we'll play mill decks against
Most
each other.
importantly, that Anawan the Ruin Thief deck I'm talking about is partially mill, so...
Sweet. So it's a
you
2-drop. It's in blue. It's got kicker 4. Each opponent mills 8 cards. If this spell was kicked instead, each opponent mills half their library, rounded up. Now, the first card that came to my mind was Traumatize. I was like, oh, this is like a Traumatize, but it costs 1 more, but you have more versatility because you could 2-drop it, mill them for 8, or you could choose later in the game to mill them for half their deck like Traumatize does. But as you pointed out, the difference between these 2 cards was...
Very simply, this says each opponent. So again, this is one of those cards that for Commander is a must play because the difference is Traumatize, 1 generic mana less, same speed, but it's target player.
Yeah, so this one's way
incredible by having the flexibility of always hitting each opponent. So all 3 of your opponents in a proper 4-player Magic Commander game is milling 8 or milling half their library.
Yep.
I honestly think this knocks Fleet Swallower out of pretty much every one of my blue decks that want to mill as well.
Okay.
That card is 7 mana for a 6/6. That's great, and it has an attack trigger of milling half of somebody's library as well. But this is a mana less to do that, and it hits each opponent, which is just such a big deal for Commander.
Yeah, that's sick.
Very valuable there.
That's very spicy, as we like to say. Spicy.
Oh yeah.
All right, Scute Swarm. At first, when I read that, I was like, oh, Shroot Swarm. I was like, oh, Parks and Recreation? No. So, Scute...
That's The Office.
That's right, The Office, not Parks and Rec. Both of them...
Same maker, different show.
Okay, yes. So, this is a 3-drop in green creature insect. This one impressed me. It's a 1/1, but the landfall mechanic. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. Okay, yeah, that's cool. But if you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scute Swarm instead. So after that 6/1, you make another Swarm, Scute Swarm. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm. And they continue to multiply in that regard because now you've got 2 Scute Swarms with that ability, and then 4, and then 8, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Oh yeah, and like you were saying, what if you transmuted this thing?
Mutate, mutate from Ixalan. Even just in green color, you've got Auspicious Starix, which for 6 mana is a 6/6. You've got Gem Razor as a 4/4 reach trample for 3.
Yeah.
You've got Glowstone Recluse as a 2/3 with reach, which will have mutated then with the counters, so your base one's bigger. You got Migratory Greathorn as a 3/4. You've got a lot of options already. Obviously, you're not getting the mutate triggers when this thing gets copied, but you're still getting the stats, and the mutate stats are very aggressively costed.
Well, plus if you mutate this thing, you're going to be triggering whatever that special mutation has, kill an artifact. At least
1 trigger of that.
Yeah, you're going to get one cool thing.
Yeah, and then every single time you drop a land after 6, every single time,
so
you're getting a copy of whatever that beefy boy is that you've just created.
Yeah, so...
And, this just screams Field of the Dead quality to me.
Oh, yeah.
I understand that Field of the Dead is so good, not just because of the 7 limit and making a 2/2, but the fact that it's a land, which gives it a lot of inherent protection. But the fact that this makes copies of itself with this ability means that if you hit 6 lands, it's going to be harder and harder and harder for your opponent to stop the swarm.
Yeah, so I at least am wondering, and maybe it's a little premature to say this, but this might be a broken card that people just don't realize is broken yet. But I am very curious to see how people lever this.
I'm psyched for this card. I think it's just crazy clever design.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Magic the Gathering on that card. Squad Commander, it's a 4-drop, 3/3 creature core warrior. When squad commander enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white core warrior creature token for each creature in your party. Party, party, party. At the beginning of the combat on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control get +1/0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. Now, my first take on this is going to be a super cool card if party is strong in standard. If it's not strong in standard, this is just like this is a cool card.
I mean, it's certainly good for white weenies on its own, whether you're building into party or not. This is a 4/4 worth of stats for 4 mana in white across 2 creatures. Because it enters, you have a warrior on the board, so you're getting a 1/1.
Yep.
Every time. But the fact that this has that ceiling again, that high of being a 4 mana with approximately 7/7 worth of stats across 4 nude creature tokens, giving your dudes +1/+0 and indestructible on swings. Not even on swings, just at the beginning of combat.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. It's very reliant on party being good, but I think at its base, it's perfectly good for white weenies.
Yeah, so we're going to need to see at least a couple more white or green party mechanics that will support this kind of thing. But
not even necessarily party mechanics, just give me some creatures with that typing and I'm happy.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's funny too, like I'm not even worried about seeing the rares in this set so much as seeing like what the base commons look like and having a look at what the other legal sets are that support party. In terms of like the creature types. Like I just want to take a glance back at like Eldraine and Core and Ikoria, just see what else can kind of fill in for white and maybe another color.
Yeah.
Just because white weenies tends to run a lot of like commons and uncommons, just low drops. So if we can find like a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop that fills, rogue, what is it, wizard and
warrior, wizard, rogue, cleric.
Yeah. And I can think of a 1-drop cleric already. So like if we can get that 2 and that 3-drop in there, in just very limited to like 1-2 colors, coming in on turn 4 with a 3/3 and 4 1/1s that gives your stuff indestructible definitely sounds like a good deal.
Yes, it does.
So it's just really about cohesion in the deck and building the right level of party payoffs versus party requirements.
For sure. All right, this next one I did a lot of digging to figure out what it actually was because it's in another language. It's Kazandu Mammoth, and it's a 3/3 3-drop, so a colorless green, which has decent stats. And then with the landfall, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I thought that was pretty good. So it could, in theory, be a 5/5 or a 7/7, depending on whatever.
And not to forget, on its back, it's a green tap land.
Yep, it's a modal card. So
it's got that flexibility of being a 3/3 for 3 with the potential to grow. But when you don't really want or need a 3/3 for 3, you've got a green tap land on the back. That's great.
Yep, I think this is one of the more strong modal cards.
I do too.
Yep.
This is one of those ones that like it's such a shame that it's not one of the ones that can come in untapped on the back. Because I feel like that would have pushed it over into like truly great territory.
Yes.
But this is a rare I will always be happy to see.
Yep. Especially in draft.
Just wish it had trample. That'd be nice.
Oh, trample. Well, green. You always want green to have trample, right?
Exactly. Green needs trample on everything.
Yes. Just put new rule. Everything green has trample.
Perfect.
Canyon Jerboa. I think I'm saying that right. It's a 3-drop in white, 1/2. Now those stats in itself kind of suck, but landfall, when a land enters the battlefield under your control, creatures, as in all of them, you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That one, when I read it, and it was an uncommon, so I dug around, I was like, ooh, this one we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Because just the fact that you give everything across your board a +1/+1. Wow.
Yeah. Once again, this is one of those white weenie cards. You drop this on turn 3, next turn you play a land and you're swinging with some slightly bigger boys, and that's always great.
Always. Yep.
Yeah.
So
never complain about a card like this.
It'll be interesting to see if that one sees any standard play. If I saw this in draft and I was in white, I'd grab it.
I wish it was a fed into party. That'd be super fun.
Oh, yeah. But, instead of a mouse, it was a cleric mouse.
Let's go.
Yeah, it should be a mouse cleric.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd be totally on board with that.
Have a little staff, like a little miniature staff. Yeah. It's a toothpick. Rats of Nim kind of thing. Well, mouse and rat.
I mean, we have elephants with staves.
Exactly. Loxodon.
Can't we have a mouse?
Yeah. All right, we'll write in about that one. Skyclave Shade, 2-drop in black. It's a 3/1 creature shade. I always like shades. Kicker 3, Skyclave Shade can't block. Well, that's not cool, but if Sky Shade was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2/1/1 counters on it, and then it's got Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if Skyclave Shade is in your graveyard and it's your turn, you may cast it from your graveyard this turn. That's pretty good.
I'm psyched about this. This feels like a more balanced version of Bloodghast.
Yeah, absolutely.
That being the two black for a 2/1 it can't block, which is where the comparison comes in.
Yep.
It has haste as long as your opponent has 10 or less life, so that one's missing out on that. But Bloodghast has whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can return Bloodghast from the graveyard to the battlefield. This one's going to cost you some mana to do so, but just that wonderful added flexibility of being between a 3/1 and a 5/3.
Yeah.
Between that kicker and the fact that you can then cast it for its kicker cost from the graveyard when you're out of options, like you don't have anything else in your hand.
Yep.
That really turns your lands on and turns this into a very aggressive attacker.
Yep, that turns it into a twofer. You know, you can play it once. And then
is crazy good too. It looks like it's literally coming out of that Hedron, and that is spooky.
That is really, really cool. That's what drew me to Magic in the very originally was just the artwork, and I'm like, what is happening here with all this stuff? But that's a whole other episode.
Absolutely.
All right, and then we're gonna round off this list with an oldie but goodie that gets reprinted to oblivion. But you and I both agree this is always a great card. Negate for 2 in blue.
This would have rotated out if it wasn't reprinted here, so it's always good to see Negate come back.
Always good.
This card is a staple.
Yep,
and it always will be.
Yep. We always like to see stuff like that.
All right, and next up we have another one of the modal dual-faced cards here. We got Undo Inversion. It is 6 white, so it's real expensive.
Yeah, it is kind of like sorcery. It's a weaker planner cleansing.
Yeah, which is for, I think that one's a 6 or 7 mana in total planner cleansing. Same effect, destroy all non-land permanents. But this one has a huge extra ability, and that's the fact that it's another one of the modal cards. So the backside is a tapped white land.
Yes.
That level of flexibility, I think, is really great, because when you're not in need of a board wipe, your opponent has no board whatsoever. Your opponent's playing control. You got yourself another land. And when you need a board wipe, paying 8 for it with that flexibility of being a land, I think, is well worth your time.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that it's a modal card.
Yeah. And then we'll throw one more on there. This is a card that's like real good, but didn't need to be a 1-drop in the fact that it's good. But it is a single red for Wayward Guidebeast. It is a 2/2 for 1 red beast, trample haste. Whenever Wayward Guidebeast deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand.
Ooh, that's spendy right there.
Yeah. But like, it's a new version of Goblin Guide, which is just a classic. But the reason I'm like genuinely interested in this card is because red has a lot of really good landfall. So like maybe you don't play this turn 1, but if you're playing like a mono red stompy deck, you know, your red deck wins typical, you don't really need more than 3 lands out. And this in a way provides you a way to spend your lands by bouncing them back to your hand and replaying them in order to recur those landfall effects.
Yeah.
While giving you a 1 mana 2/2 with trample haste.
Which is great stats.
Which is great. Yeah, like that's the downside is much bigger than Goblin Guide, but like the upside there is definitely cool, and I really do appreciate that a lot.
You do appreciate heavy swingers that cost very little in red, I've noticed.
Yes, indeed. Nobody can complain about those, I hope.
Oh, not at all. Well, that ends the today's spoilers. Tune in tomorrow, and the next day we'll round this out. Be a friend of the gathering. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe. Put some stuff in the comments, and we'll see you next episode.
See you next time.
All right.